In 2010, we got the high-grade 00 Quanta. Don't mind that it's customized and painted. And then 6 years later, we have the real grade 00 Quanta. Let's see how this one stacks up. Hey guys, how's it going? It is Plastic Disasta, and today we are going to do a review of the real grade 00 Quanta. Just to get things out of the way, I've already talked about where the Gundam is from, and I've already talked about what the movie's about. If you want me to go into detail, please check out the high-grade version of that review. Scratch that, I did not go into detail what the movie's about. I'm going to sum it up in a few words. Alien invasion. And this Gundam is piloted by a protagonist who is quiet, mysterious, and shouts, "I am Gundam" once in a while. Set in a FCA. Take a look at the box art. It's the usual real grade box. We have the close-up of the Gundam's face and the Gundam itself. You can look at this side of the box. We see a familiar close-up of the face, the inner frame. And speaking of the inner frame, there is a runner dedicated to that. Some decal sheets, some gimmicks, and a front shot of the Gundam. And this side we have some action poses, the rear shot of the Gundam, and more action poses, and some close-ups. Opening the box, we are going to be greeted with 6 bags of runners and a manual. I'm going to go through the manual. I'm not going to go like every single detail, just the highlights. So moving on, we already saw a familiar close-up face of the Gundam. Looking inside the manual, it shows how to take the parts out of the runners and clean it up. And right here, it looks like we're going to be using almost all the parts. So you're going to start building out the inner frame first, and then later on, you're going to add armor onto the Gundam, and it keeps going on, and soon you're going to build the accessories. And taking a look at the back of the manual, it shows where you place all the decals. And right over here is a color guide and a painted figure of our protagonist. So starting off with runner A is going to be a multicolored parts, the blue, the yellow, the white, and the clear green. It looks like we have parts for the GN shield, looks like we have parts for the head, torso, and that's definitely parts for the sword. Runner B is going to be the inner frame parts. Now this kit came out in 2016. This was way before they got rid of this idea. The one thing I'm really concerned about is that how is this inner frame going to hold up in the long run? I mean, let's face it, real grades are not meant to be played around. C is going to be another multi-colored runner. We have white parts up here, gray parts, red parts, and clear parts, and that's definitely for the stand because there is the Buster Sword option, which can be heavy, and I'm glad they gave it to us. Looking at the gray parts, looks like we have more parts for the inner frame. Of course, the white is going to be the outer armor, same thing for the red. Next up, we have runner D is going to be more white parts. Looks like we have parts for the thigh and hand covers as well. And we also have another runner D. Runner E is going to be more gray parts, and I assume there are parts for the frame, and we have another runner E. Runner F is going to be the blue parts. I know for a fact these two are going to go on the legs, and these are going to go on the GN drive shield. We also have 2 of these. Runner G is going to be more gray parts, and looks like we have more parts for the inner frame. It looks like we also have hand options. Runner H is going to be the clear green parts, and these are going to be for the GN shield, and while these green circles are going to be scattered across the body, and looks like we have 2 of these. Instead of using these silver stickers right here, I'm going to paint it instead. That about wraps up the unboxing, and for a real grade, that's not a lot of runners, so I'm really looking forward to how it holds up, and I'll see you guys after the build. Okay, so here is the 00 Quanta all put together, and I gotta say, for a real grade, it doesn't take that long because I already showed you that for a real grade, once again, it's not a lot of parts. I have heard it's actually quite easy compared to the RG Exia and the 00, but I never built those two, so I can't make the comparison. And speaking of comparisons, now, as you saw earlier, I have customized my HG00 Quanta, and I'm going to try my best to compare those two. I know I should have compared them earlier, but once again, I'll do my best. Taking a look at the proportions, you can see that the RG is actually chunkier compared to the HG version. Spoiler alert, both kits are great in their own ways, so it just depends on your personal preference. I also want to apologize in advance since the 00 Quanta has this Buster Sword mode and the Buster Rifle mode, I think that's the official name for it, I can't compare the HG version and the RG version because for the HG version, I don't want to risk chipping the paint. Also, that gun right there, I made that. If you want me to go in detail about this custom build I did, let me know in the comments below. Okay, so let me just put this aside and do a 360 look on the RG Quanta. And as you can see, it does have a lot of nice details, of course being an RG kit. If you're a modeler that does straight builds, it'll look fine, but once you panel line it and put some decals in it, it'll look even better. So that counts as minimal effort. As for seam lines, there's almost none. What I mean by almost is that there are some, but they are disguised as a detail or a panel line. And when I was building this kit, I find the ball joint on the head kind of loose. It easily pops off, and the peg on the thighs. So I put a little super glue on it just to thicken it, and so far it's doing an okay job. So now that you've seen the out-of-box presentation and the proportional differences between the real grade and the high grade I already showed you, I'm going to bring back the high grade later because there are some comparisons I want to point out, and I'm going to work on this kit, and I'll see you guys right after that. Okay, so here is the RG Quanta detailed up. Funny story, when I was detailing up this kit, I accidentally poured freaking tester enamel thinner on the GN shield. Well, luckily it's not the whole GN shield, but just some parts of it, and it makes the plastic weak and is prone to breaking. So lesson learned, if you're working with testers enamel thinners, please be careful when you're working with it and try to make it as far away from plastic as possible. I only use that just to clean up some panel lining or make any errors if I do any hand painting. When I'm demonstrating the GN shield, I'll try to be as careful as possible. So going back to the review, once you do all the detail work, put some decals on it, maybe do a little detail painting, it'll look great. Starting off with accessories. For hand options, as you can see, he has the closed fist, 2 of the weapon holding hands, and I already have the GN sword 5 attached to one of the hands. Speaking of the GN sword, this flap can move in and out. Same thing for this one. And there's a peg right here to attach it to this part of the arm. And this blade right here, you can rotate it to make the gun mode, and I also have the peg if you want to attach it to the side skirt for weapon storage. 1 open palm hand for the left hand. 2 of the RG style hands, as you can see, it has a peg adapter if you want to use these to hold the GN Sword 5. Here you have these GN Sword bits, A, B, and C, or for simplicity's sake, long, medium, and short. And as you can tell, there is a handle right here, so you can have them hold a smaller blade if you want. To make the GN Buster Sword mode, so you take this long sword GN bit, collapse the handle, take the small one, make sure the handle sticks out, so it will pop in like so. So it should be something like that. Take the GN sword bit, and you attach it to these little tiny holes. I know you can barely see it, but if you follow the instruction manual, you will understand, right? And it should look like this, and then you're going to take the medium ones and you're going to attach it right down there. And here is how the Buster Sword is gonna look. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and do a little size comparisons, and holy moly, it is taller than the Quanta. As for the gun mode, bring this flap out, bring the handle down, bring this down, rotate the blade, and the tip right here, you just open it up, and if you're careful enough, it should look just like this. And for those who are curious if it can hold the weight, yeah, it could, but since this is a 2016 kit that has an inner frame, I'm worried that the joints may not hold up over time. But if you're really worried, that is when this action-based adapter comes to play. To use the action-based adapter, you see this hole right there, you can plug it to any of these pegs and it will hold, which does the job for the most part. And to store the GN sword bits, okay, I gotta take out the GN shield just to make it easier on me. So to store it, you want to open these up and flip out these little adapter piece. You might want to get a toothpick if you can't get it in there, and it should look like this. And to attach it, it's just as easy as medium goes in the back, long and short goes to the front. Once you put it all together, it should look like this. And if you want, you can make it stick out and take advantage of that gimmick. Okay, yeah, I know I'm slipping up here and there. I'm just trying to be as delicate as possible, but here's how it looks, and it looks like a cool spaceship if you ask me. I mean, as cool as it looks, I'm not going to display it like this, unfortunately. And since we're on the topic of the GN shield, I just want to show you the articulation it does, because once again, I just fixed it, and I'm trying to be very careful with it. And I'm also going to give you a quick turnaround. I mean, it looks nice. If it weren't for me making an oopsie, if I would have demonstrated. Just to quickly wrap up the accessories, you have an action-based adapter and a 1/44 scale of the pilot's Cessna FCA. So even though there's not a lot of accessories, you can still do a whole lot. So let's go over the articulation. The head is on a ball joint, and you also get a little chicken action. You can move in and out. The shoulder can rotate and can move in and out. The arm can lift that far. Bicep swivel, bend at the elbow more than 90. This part right here is on a little hinge, and the wrist is on the ball joint. And looking at this shoulder, this flap can move a little in and out. And I forgot to show you that the shoulder pad can move up and down. The upper torso can rock side to side. As for out crunch, you can go this far, backwards, that far, and you get a waist swivel. And for RGs, they have this opening cockpit gimmick. You just have to pull this blue piece out. Got to pry it open with a toothpick. It should slide out. Okay, so that's how it looks on camera. It makes it hard, but all you gotta do is pull the blue part out and lift it up just a little bit. Part of the front skirt can rotate a little bit. And as for the side skirt, it can move out that far. And that's about it. And it can move up not that far. As for the back skirt, it can rotate. Okay, so I noticed I messed up on the side skirt right there. It can move back, and it's also on the ball joint. For the leg, it can move up that far, move back that far, can do a full split, double bend at the knee, and you also got some nice armor separation. This flap can move up and down. The ankle armor right here can move out and in, and as for the foot, it can move up that far, move back that far, get a really great pivot. You also get a toe bend, can move down that far, and the toes can move up that far. Moving on to the backpack, wish me luck. It can move in and out. It can rotate, 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 and rotate, and whew, so far so good. Okay, so before I move on to size comparisons, I'm gonna have to bring in the HG version one last time to do a few more comparisons. Alright, so comparing the GN shield, here's the HG version. You can tell that the RG is just slightly longer. Get this part right here is longer, but this part right here, this is wider, and this is thinner. Taking a look at the backpack, this is wider, this is thinner. And taking a look at the top view, you can tell that this part right here is longer than the RG version. And get this, I find it easier to control this GN shield than the RG version. And as for the final comparison, we're going to compare the GN Sword 5, and seems like the RG version is compensating for something. Alright, now we're moving on to the size comparisons. Here he is right next to standard RX 782, and as you can see, the RG Quanta is slightly taller than the standard size RX 72. And of course, what would Heroes Month be without the alternate universe protagonist? And man, will you look at that, it's one big happy family. But sadly, the Quanta is still slightly shorter than the Barbados Lupus Rex. And how could I forget Prime and Godzilla? Okay, so wrapping up with this review for my final thoughts. Is it a good kit? Yeah, it is. For 2016 standards, it's actually not bad, and it's somewhat ahead of its time. Because usually in modern RG kits, you don't get any pre-molded inner frame. However, for the forearms of the RG Quanta, it's not a pre-molded inner frame. But it still shares the inner frame with the 00 riser and the Exia. And if I'm careful enough, the inner frame may hold up over time. It's just that it's an RG kit, and like I mentioned earlier in my review, they're not meant to be played around. As long as you're careful, you get a pretty solid kit. So other than that, I highly recommend this kit. And to get this off my chest, I know the video has been a little off. It's just that the incident I have is driving me crazy and almost broke me. I guess I do live up to my name, Plastic Disasta. But hey, nothing's gonna hold me down. Heroes Month is almost over. Don't forget to leave a comment, like as well, subscribe if you're new here, if you like this sort of content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. For the final episode of Heroes Month, technically I am breaking the rules here because it is somewhat Universal Century that turn a Gundam, and I will explain why in the review.